Did Jesus die of a literal broken heart? I know, it sounds like a metaphor, right? For 2,000 years, we've all known the story of how Jesus died. But what if we've been missing a crucial clue this whole time? What if a single, tiny, overlooked detail in an eyewitness account points to a medical reality so specific it could change everything we think we know about the cross?
Yeah, it all comes down to this one single, really strange detail. It was recorded by the Apostle John, an eyewitness. A sudden flow of blood and water. Now look, if you're reading that, you might just skip right over it. Maybe think it's some kind of poetic flourish. But to a doctor or forensic investigator, oh, that's not poetry. That's a clue. A massive piece of evidence that points to a very, very specific cause of death.
So that's the big question we're going to dig into. What did that soldier's spear actually reveal? What if that weird flow of blood and water wasn't just a symbol? What if it was a literal, physical window into the final moments of Jesus' life, telling a story that modern science is only now, thousands of years later, starting to really get? So here we are at a 2,000-year-old mystery. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just a question for theologians. It's a forensic investigation. We've got modern medical science crashing right into this ancient testimony. And you have to remember, John, the guy who saw it, he insisted that what he saw was true, that he wrote it down for a reason. Okay, so to really grasp why that little detail, blood and water, is such a bombshell, we've got to first understand what was supposed to happen on a Roman cross. And let me tell you, the Romans, they were masters of this stuff. They had perfected crucifixion for one single purpose: to make death as slow, as painful, and as predictable as possible. It was a brutal, agonizing process. First, it all started with a brutal scourging. This caused a ton of blood loss, right away sending the body into what's called hypovolemic shock. Then came the nailing, which wasn't just about pinning someone up. It was designed to sever major nerves. That means every single movement, every breath, would be just excruciating. But here's the thing. Neither of those were supposed to be the actual cause of death. The real killer, by design, was asphyxiation.
So here's the truly horrific mechanic of it all. To get a single breath, the victim had to push their entire body weight up on the nails in their feet. When they couldn't, their body would sag, their chest would compress, and they'd start to suffocate. So it was this horrible cycle, over and over. Push up to breathe, slump down from exhaustion and pain. This could go on for days, until you were just too weak to push up one more time. That was the standard, expected way to die on a cross. But this is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because Jesus' death, it didn't follow the script. Not at all. There were these inexplicable clues, things that happened that baffled even the Roman soldiers, the experts in this, suggesting something else was going on entirely. First clue, the speed. Jesus was dead in just 6 hours. Now, you gotta understand, most crucifixion victims lasted for 2, sometimes 3 days. His death was so fast, so unexpected, that the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, literally couldn't believe it. He actually demanded confirmation from his soldiers because he was that shocked. So, why so quick? And then there's this second clue, and this one is even stranger. The eyewitness account from Matthew says that just before he died, Jesus cried out with a loud voice. Medically speaking, that should be impossible. Someone dying of slow suffocation, of asphyxiation, would be so weak they could barely whisper, let alone shout. Their last moments would be a silent fade, not a powerful final cry. So let's just lay it out, side by side. On one hand, you've got your typical crucifixion, a slow, agonizing death that takes days and ends in quiet suffocation. And on the other hand, you have what happened to Jesus, a rapid death in hours, coherent right up to the end, and finishing with a loud cry. I mean, these two things are polar opposites. They just don't add up. Which brings us to the absolute critical question. Why was this death so different? If it wasn't the slow, predictable process of asphyxiation, then what in the world actually happened on that cross? All the clues are pointing to some kind of catastrophic medical event, something sudden, something violent. All right, now this is where we get to put on our detective hats and make a diagnosis from a distance, using what we know from modern medicine to solve this ancient mystery. And believe me, the explanation is both shocking and incredibly profound.
Okay, so the most compelling medical theory today is something called cardiac rupture. And that is exactly what it sounds like, a literal tear in the wall of the heart. The idea is that under the absolute extreme physical and emotional stress of the crucifixion, the heart muscle itself just gave way. It burst. When that happens, blood floods the little sac that surrounds the heart, a condition known as hemopericardium. And this is the crucial point that cracks the whole 2,000-year-old mystery wide open. See, inside that sac, the blood doesn't just stay as, blood. Over a short time, it would separate into its different parts. You'd get a heavy layer of red blood cells that sink to the bottom, and a clear, yellowish, watery fluid called serum that floats on top. Think about it. This one single diagnosis explains everything. All the weird clues just click into place. The rapid death? A cardiac rupture is catastrophic and pretty much immediate. That loud cry? Totally consistent with a final surge of adrenaline right before the heart fails. And the blood and water? Well, when that soldier's spear went in and punctured that fluid-filled sac, what would come out? First the red blood cells from the bottom layer, and then the clear serum from the top. Blood and water. Exactly as John said he saw. But this isn't just about solving a medical puzzle. Not even close. This is where the physical, forensic evidence and the deep spiritual meaning of it all collide. Because the phrase that Jesus died of a broken heart, it turns out to be true. Literally. In every possible sense of the word. You can really look at it in 3 dimensions. First, there's the physical. The medical evidence points straight to a cardiac rupture, the literal mechanical breaking of the heart organ. Then there's the emotional. The ancient prophet Isaiah called him a man of sorrows, someone who would carry the weight of all human grief. And finally, the spiritual. When he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That was the sound of a perfect unity with God the Father being broken. And this idea goes even deeper when you understand the ancient Hebrew concept of the heart, or lev, live. To them, the heart wasn't just where you felt emotions, like we think of it. The lev was the core of your entire being, your will, your mind, your soul, the whole shebang. So when the scriptures talk about a broken heart, they're talking about the total shattering of a person from the inside out. So the theological takeaway here, it's pretty staggering. There's this ancient prophecy in the book of Ezekiel that promises God will give people a new heart, a heart of flesh to replace a heart of stone. The implication is powerful. The literal, physical breaking of Jesus' heart on the cross is what makes the spiritual healing of our own hearts possible. So in the end, the medical evidence doesn't weaken this story or explain it away. It does the complete opposite. It magnifies the sheer, brutal, physical reality of the sacrifice. It takes a profound spiritual truth and grounds it in a verifiable, physical event. And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the phrase broken heart isn't just a metaphor anymore, but an actual medical diagnosis, how does knowing the physical, biological reality of that moment change its spiritual meaning for you?